Good afternoon, and welcome to today's Caregiver webinar, Paying for Caregiving Expenses, Where to Get Help. My name is Katherine Hall, and I am the Social Services Specialist of the Caregiver Support Services Unit with the Fairfax Area on Aging. Just a few housekeeping items before we begin today. This presentation is being recorded. A link for this recording and slides will be sent to you by next week. We have also enabled closed captioning, and you are able to turn on your captioning or off using the Zoom panel at the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions during today's presentation, please use the Q&A button. We will try to get to as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. There will also be a quick survey when you sign out. If you can please take a moment to answer these questions, it really does help us create programs that are relevant and interesting to our caregiver community. Now, I would like to introduce our speaker today, Sally Hurme. Sally is a Virginia elder law attorney who retired from AARP after 23 years of advocating on a variety of issues, including surrogate decision making, advanced care planning, and elder abuse. Since retiring, she has consulted on elder law issues with the National Institute of Justice at the U.S. Department of Justice, the National Adult Protective Services Training Center, the Administration on Training, and Geriatrics and Palliative Care Decision of New York Presbyterian Queens. Sally is the best-selling author of ABA, AARP checklist books that are practical guides to legal matters encountered by individuals in retirement, their caregivers, and families, including checklists for family caregivers, a guide to making it manageable. She also hosts the Great Course 18 Lectures series on getting your legal house in order. Sally received her law degree, cum laude, from Washington College of Law at American University in Washington, D.C., and her bachelor's degree from Newcomb College and Tulane University in New Orleans. She lives in Bridgewater, Virginia, with her husband, 4 cats, and 2 dogs. Thank you so much, Sally, for being here today and sharing your wealth and knowledge and expertise with us. Do you mind bringing yourself off camera and feeling free to start the presentation?
Well, thank you, Catherine. And I'm delighted to have the opportunity to talk with you today. I have some slides to get us started in our conversation, but the questions and answers are really the best part. So I'll save some time for that. But uh, so let's get started with the next slide. Um, the cost of caregiving and the stress that it creates is definitely real. Um, f- from studies that AARP has done, we know that there are at least 53 million unpaid family caregivers, and studies have shown that almost $300,000 in average lifetime cost to caregivers for filling that unpaid role. There can be lost wages, lost contributions to Social Security when you have to take time off or even quit your job to take on caregiving responsibilities. Um, AARP study shows that almost 80% of the family caregivers tell us that they have to use their own money to help pay for the care that they are providing for a loved one, with sometimes as much as $7,000 as an average out of pocket costs just to fulfill this wonderful role that you do. Um, so we know that in many instances, caregivers are tapping into their savings, they're stopping savings, they're neglecting their own needs, and not to put even an equation on the time and the care that you as a caregiver are giving. So what I hope today to do is to give you some ideas as to where you might get some financial relief on top without going into the emotional and medical stress that you might be experiencing. So, next slide. I've got some tips and some ideas, but whether any of the things that I suggest that you think about are going to really be successful really depends on what your relationship is with the care recipient. Um, I'll add that I am a spousal caregiver. My husband has fairly advanced dementia. I and I know that when the caregiving relationship is spouse to spouse, it's somewhat different, and but there are different financial circumstances when the spouse is the caregiver or when the you are being a caregiver for your parent, and that change in role, um, or whether you are caring for um, a younger person or a sibling, the family relationship or the potential financial relationship that you might have with the care recipient really is going to depend on what kind of options uh, or suggestions that I might be able to provide. Next. But regardless of your relationship with the care recipient, many of the issues are the same. How do you find the time needed to provide those caregiving services? Do you need to cut back your working hours? Do you have to stop work? Are you going to retire early? I actually retired a couple of years before I was planning on retiring uh, because I knew I needed to be sort of full time available to take care of my husband. Um, Also, the issues, regardless of your relationship, are how do you manage the social costs? That's your personal stress, the health that you need to maintain. We have to take care of ourselves so we can take care of someone else. And we also know that um, when that there might be intra-family issues about how money is being spent, um, how much it costs to provide care that can create family stress among other members of the family other than beyond just the caregiver and the care recipient. Um, so what I really hope to primarily talk to you about is to how to manage some of the financial burden and find the resources that you may need to help with the financial burden of caregiving. Next. So, one of the first places really to look, if you haven't looked already, is in the care recipient's resources. Um, what income sources do they have? Do they have Social Security? Is there a pension? If they are they a veteran and are they receiving VA benefits? What sort of investments or savings do they have that can contribute to the cost of care? Do they have any IRAs or other retirement savings vehicles that have been accumulated over a lifetime of work? Uh, are make sure that you are aware of what all of the potential income sources are of the recipient. In addition, um, particularly if you're starting out with caregiving, there are lots of things that you need to find out about the individual. What health insurance do they have? Are they on Medicare? Are they on Medicaid? And do they have a long-term care insurance policy? Where is it and what does it cover? I'll talk a little bit more about long-term care insurance later on. Um, the individual's home, if they are still living at home, can be a potential source of of assets, of income, and that needs to be carefully considered. But I'll talk a little bit about using the care recipient's home as a source of income. And then also, what other resources does the individual have? What supports are they currently receiving? Uh, what is their social network? Is there a faith-based communities perhaps that will be able to provide some volunteer support to help you? Um, are there food programs, nutrition programs that the care recipient is currently receiving that perhaps could be expanded or augmented or added as a resource to the individual to assist you in your caregiving responsibilities. Next slide. And it's really important as you are starting or continuing your caregiving responsibilities that you know what your current expenses are and where there might be any um, uh, places to go, as well as what are in figuring out sort of a budget for the financial burden. What are the care recipients' current expenses for their housing? Where what does it cost to maintain whatever it is where they're living? Is there a mortgage? Um, what are the terms of the mortgage? How much more life is there to the mortgage? Uh, what or their rent or their nursing home expenses? What is that? What how that may be a very large chunk of their budget. Um, how how are they gaining their food? Are they shopping on their own? Might there be ways to uh, help them get meals on wheels or have food delivery using one of the grocery stores um, uh, services to shop online and have it delivered? What is the cost of that? Um, what are their medical expenses beyond uh, how much copays are are they having to pay? What medications are they on? How much? What are the copays on the medication? Do they have Part D with their Medicare? Um, I know I chuckled about the cost of drugs because I've just been my husband's has this one prescription that is very, very expensive, and I keep trying to find a way to make that not cost so much. Um, what are their expenses for insurance? Is there homeowners insurance? Renters insurance? Um, car insurance if they're still driving? And what are there other transportation expenses? Are there ways, are there volunteer ways that they can get around when necessary? Uh, ride sharing, or some taxis have coupon booklets. Um, are there ride on bus um, opportunities to save on transportation and get the individual where they need to go? But what are the current expenses? Next. So sometimes once you know what the income is of the individual and what are their current existing expenses, the next thing you need to do in trying to figure out how to fill the gap between um, income and expenses. First place, can you increase the recipient's income? Are there any benefits that they are eligible for that they are not receiving? And one quick place to go is benefitscheckup.org, which is an online program that will identify based on a zip code what kinds of programs may be available within the community. But probably the better, easier way to do it is if you going online is not the greatest solution to finding the answers to problems, then get in touch with the Fairfax Area Agency on Aging. They have a tremendous ability to identify potential benefits and resources that are available right at home. In trying to find ways to save whatever the recipient's assets might be, there are various programs that you can consider depending on the individual circumstance. Um, there's the possible, if you have not explored it, check to see if your care recipient is living at home. Do they have um, a homestead exemption on their property? It's available in Virginia, in Northern Virginia, to see if they would be eligible for um, an, a reduction in property taxes if they are continuing to live at home. Um, SNAP, which is really what we call food stamps, SNAP might be a benefit that would ease the high cost of purchasing groceries and making sure that the individual is able to pay for the most nutritious type of food through SNAP benefits. Meals on Wheels is a wonderful program that provides meals for individuals who may not who who need assistance in having home delivered meals. It's a wonderful volunteer program. Um, check with the area agency on aging if bringing meals into the care recipient's home would be advantageous. Another benefit, as long as the money's still there, is a program called LIHEAP, which provides grants to improve the weatherization of an individual's home if it is drafty and expensive to heat. Um, um, there is a program that sometimes runs out of money, but can come into an individual's home to evaluate whether there are ways to save on energy by um, uh, looking for leaks, um, increasing insulation, and whatever homeowner things that might help with the individual save on electricity. When drugs when drug costs become out of reach in the even whether you're on a Part D, um, whether they are on a Part D drug plan, um, the check with the pharmacist or the prescribing physician if a pharmaceutical assistance program might be available to assist with the cost of some prescription drugs. Um, Saving on drugs is a high priority, at least in my family. Next slide. One thing I did want to point out that as a lawyer, some families don't know the true parameters of what we call filial responsibility. Um, Adult children may be responsible under law for some of the debts of their parents. Um, Adult children who do have a legal responsibility to make sure that the basic needs of a family member are being paid for. And that includes food, clothing, shelter where they live, and their medical expenses. Um, this filial responsibility is based on the fact if a family member can't pay, doesn't have the income um, or the resources or the availability of benefits to assist them, and there are family members who can pay. Um, be aware of the fact that nursing homes can and do sue family members for unpaid nursing home bills. But next slide. Under the Virginia law, you must have your own the family members must have sufficient earning capacity or income after taking care of their own immediate family before they can be looked to paying for a parent's basic necessities, which would require the individual to assist in providing for the support and maintenance of a mother or father in who is in necessitous circumstances. Um, and if there's more than one family member who is able to help with the individual's support, they, under Virginia statute, can jointly and severally, together or and individually, share in the discharge of their duty to make sure that parents are not in necessitous circumstances. And but keep in mind, this requirement does not apply if the parent is otherwise eligible for or is receiving any public assistance from federal or state programs. So just know that that law is out there. Lots of people don't know. It's not used that frequently, but nursing homes are the ones who are more likely to um, uh, use this Virginia Code statute. Next. One thing that you, as a family caregiver, would want to explore as a possible assistance in reducing your personal financial burden. Uh, and so I have some suggestions. It depends entirely on the circumstances of your family relationship. But one is a family caregiver agreement. And this is a contract between the care recipient and the caregiver. It must be in writing. It should look like any employment contract that you have. but you can employ, well, no, the care recipient can employ a family member to pay them for the costs for their services that they are providing. Um, because it must be a regular employment contract, it should say exactly what the responsibilities are, how many hours of care would be provided, and what a reasonable compensation would be. It should be the same sort within the range of what the care recipient would need to pay an outsider, but you can pay a family member. The contract should include things like how the individual would be reimbursed for expenses, for mileage that they use driving their personal car to take the care recipient to doctor's appointments. It should include how the care provider, the caregiver, would have vacation or paid days off, or um, and because this is a regular employment contract, that becomes income that must be paid, must be reported by the caregiver. It's got to be prospective. You can't say, I'm going to hire my daughter to provide caregiving services, and she's been doing this for a while, so I'm going to pay her for the previous years. No, that doesn't work. It has to be going forward from the date of this contract. I will employ my daughter under these circumstances to do these tasks. And I actually have a caregiving contract with my daughter, who provides backup care for my husband, who needs basic 24-hour care. And actually, that's what she's doing right now. And I am paying her um, an hourly wage to take care of my husband while I am here at the office talking to you. Um, it is it's not going to work in every circumstances. It may not be appropriate. The care recipient may not have the resources to pay for that caregiving, but it is something that I like to say, keep the money in the family when there is an appropriate circumstance to pay a family caregiver for recognizing the fact that my daughter is taking care of my husband instead of doing another paid job. It's important to share this with other members of the family who may be upset or may think it's um, not the best use of money. So talk it out with other family members to make sure that they understand that you are compensating, let's say, one member of the family and not the other member of the family, who is the person here taking care of mom or dad, um, and that it keeps the money in the family instead of going to some outsider who would be paid to provide caregiving services. Next slide. If the care recipient with is a veteran and receiving veterans benefits, um, there are a number of VA benefits that may be appropriate, that may be available. If the vet is enrolled in standard medical benefit package and needs high level of care but wants to stay home, the VA can provide a home health aide um, to come into the home to take care of the vet. Um, and also, the VA does provide skilled home health care for an individual who needs just um, special care after a hospital stay. This is only for a limited period of time, but it is a benefit to keep in mind. The VA also has a number of all adult daycare programs. It depends. I'm not sure what's available in Northern Virginia, but your area agency on aging or your Veterans Administration would be able to tell you what kind of adult daycare would be available near in your community. And also, the VA can provide respite care to certain caregivers who need a break from their caregiving responsibilities. And the VA does have a program to pay caregivers, including family members, who are needed to assist with activities of daily living or instrumental activities of daily living. There, as with any federal program, there's always changes. We don't know what's happening about all of these various programs right now with the current administration, but there are these potential benefits with lots of details to make sure that um, the veterans is available and so forth. But uh, keep in mind that these are potential benefits that could help you um, provide care for your loved one if your loved one is a veteran. Next slide. VA also has another program called Aid and Attendance. And what this does is it's a dollar supplement to the regular uh, pension, which can help pay for the costs of receiving care at home. The maximum amount of this additional benefit uh, right now is $2,727 a month if the veteran is married. There are various parameters and restrictions to this, as with any government program, but the vet has to have served at least 90 days active duty during a period of war, which is specifically defined by dates. They must be confined to a bed most of the time or in a nursing home, and they must require assistance with their activities of daily living, which are getting up, going to the bathroom, toileting, uh, um, moving around, taking care of finances, and so forth. There must be an attending doctor report talking about the needs for care. And this is needs based. I said the maximum was $2,727, but it is a needs based program, so that amount could be reduced based on the vet's income. Um, Although it is a needs-based program, the asset cap for the veteran is 1,550 $1,550, $50,000. There we go. Not good with numbers. Uh, so if the vet is confined at home and needs extra help, aid and attendance may provide extra money to pay for care provided in the home. Next slide. The VA also has a lot of programs, particularly for caregivers, especially for those who have a serious injury or in line of duty and needs personal care. There can be a monthly stipend for the immediate family or living caregivers. And there can also be a travel reimbursement for and lodging expenses if you need to travel with your veteran to VA appointments. And they also have lots of training and webinars and provide one-on-one counseling. So again, if the veteran has been seriously injured, there can be an additional VA stipend to provide to the family member for live-in care. Next slide. I said I was going to talk about long-term care insurance. I have my reservations about many of the policies, but some policies do pay for payment to family caregivers who are going to be providing in-home care services to the policy holder. Long-term care insurance the policy, depending on the company and the policy, may require that you, as the in-home caregiver, to become qualified as an in-home aide. And that would be taking some necessary courses to kind of become certified to make sure that you have the nursing type of skills to be an in-home aide. Um, if you have a if you know that your care recipient has a long-term care insurance policy, um, check to see if it does provide payment for family members who are providing in-home care. If your care recipient doesn't have a long-term care insurance policy, it's too late now to get a new policy. They can be very expensive. And once the need for the policy has occurred, it's too late to be able to be eligible to get a long-term care policy. But just if there's a policy, check it out, see if it would provide another way for you as a caregiver to get some uh, way to be paid. Next slide. Another thing that you should be aware of is the medical expense deduction, particularly if you are you and your if you're married to the caregiver. The caregiver and the care recipient are married, your spouses. Your care recipient can deduct on their federal income tax, if they itemize the cost of care, including, let's say, the caregiving through a family caregiver agreement would be an itemized deduction, along with all of the other copays, drug expenses, hospital copays, the dental expenses that you have that are not covered, vision, and it also includes acupuncture. All of those various costs, if you have documentation and if you itemize, you can deduct that from your income tax. If the total amount of your medical expenses during 1 year is over 7.5% of your adjusted gross income. So what does all that mean? Let me just give you an example. If the person filing the return, joint or individual, has $50,000 of adjusted gross income, 7.5% of that would be $3,750, so that the individual, the taxpayer, can deduct those expenses that are more than 300 $3,750. Last time I checked, over 8 million taxpayers had used this medical expense deduction and had received credit for, or at least a reduction in taxes of over $9,000. So, um, and another thing that you can, if you itemize and if you have documentation, you can also deduct the travel for the mileage for to get medical care at 21 cents a mile. Like I live in Bridgewater, and my husband has several doctor's appointments across the valley over in Charlottesville at the University of Virginia. So I keep track of the mileage that it takes to drive 60 miles over, 60 miles back. I keep the date and the mileage, and that is another deduction at 21 cents a mile. But we're looking for all of the possible ways that we can reduce taxes, make caregiving a bit more affordable. Next slide. Also, if your care recipient is if you're providing more than 50% of the basic living expenses, this wouldn't work for spouses, but it would be if you're caring for a sibling or a parent, and you are providing more than 50% of their food, clothing, housing, medical expenses. They don't have to live with you, but if you're paying for more than 50% of those expenses, you may be able to deduct those expenses that you are paying for the individual as a dependent on your personal tax return. Um, check with a tax professional about how to calculate those basic living expenses so that you can consider that individual as a dependent. It's not your spouse, but it might be a child or a sibling or someone else. Next slide. Nope, we're not in the right place. We're going the wrong way. Next slide. Nope, nope. Okay, there we go. We're good. um, in case you were wondering, Medicare and Medicaid are not going to pay you for help you with your caregiving expenses. Medicare will only pay directly to certified home health care agencies, and that care is by a home health aide is only for intermittent skilled care for less than 8 hours a day. Over a 3 week period. Um, Medicare, Medicare is not going to pay you. Medicare Advantage, if your individual has Medicare Advantage, check with the policy to see if caregiving expenses in any way are going to be covered. Medicaid in Virginia does not pay for family caregivers. Um, some states do allow for payments to family caregivers. This program is called Cash and Counseling, um, or Self Directed Personal Care, but it is not available in Virginia. So let's move on to the next slide.
And Sally,
So
that's the end of the show.
that's the end of the show. All right. Oh, well, good. We have 15 minutes for questions. I've given you a scattering of things to think about, places to go to figure out how you might be able to find some assistance in paying for caregiving expenses. But I will now turn it over to Catherine, and she can feed me questions, and hopefully I will have answers.
Thank
Catherine,
you. Yes, thank you so much, Sally, for the great presentation. Now I would like to invite all of the audience to submit questions in the QA box. So we do have some that have already come in. How do family caregiver agreements work if care recipients have dementia?
Okay. The okay. If the end depends on the baseline, it depends on the degree of dementia. Um, what is their capacity? My husband has dementia, but he has the capacity to enter into contracts. The level of capacity to sign any contract um, is whether the individual understands what it is that they're doing, who they want to provide care, what kind of details, not the details, but yes, I would like to hire my daughter, my granddaughter to provide services. I know that I would be paying for her to provide that care. Um, so if the person has very advanced dementia and would not be able to understand what the agreement was for or why or who, then a caregiving agreement is not going to be available. I would highly recommend that you speak with um, an elder law attorney, such as myself, who would be able to assist the family in drawing up a potential caregiving agreement, um, and would assist the family in evaluating whether the individual wants this, understands it, and could has the capacity to sign the contract. Actually, in my circumstance, my husband could sign the agreement, but I entered into the contract with my daughter with my husband's understanding that this is what he wants. I mean, I took care of it. I'm the lawyer in the family, but
Okay, thank you. So this next question, how can a nursing home ask for payments when I confirm Medicaid will pay 100% for that in-network facility?
okay. Well, how can they? Well, sometimes nursing homes are greedy. Um, if the individual is on Medicaid and it is with full coverage, the full cost of the board and care should be covered. It's going to take a need to look at the nursing home contract. Are there other things that the nursing home is trying to bill the family for that are not covered under the Medicaid agreement with the nursing home? There may be extra expenses that would not be covered by Medicaid. But if there are issues about what the nursing home is billing the family over and above what you thought was the nursing home contract, talk to a lawyer. It's going to have to take a look at the contract, the nursing home contract, and it may be a legitimate extra expense, and it may not. A lawyer's going to have to take a look at it.
Okay. Okay, thank you. This next question asks, when do you file a 1099 for your daughter? And is the rate of pay what your daughter would otherwise have made in her usual job or on the rate that a comparable caregiver would be paid in your area?
Right. Uh, the criteria is what not what she would would have earned in her real job, but what is the comparable pay for the type of care that she would be providing if you had to purchase it on the outside? My husband was at a time going to an adult daycare program, and I knew how much I was paying a week for that care and for how many hours. And I'm paying my daughter the same amount of money that I would have been paying a, a where he was getting adult daycare uh, provided. So and I filed the 1099 in January, just so that, and she has to report the money that I pay her on her income tax as income. And I do not deduct Social Security, so she has to pay it herself, and I don't deduct her federal or state taxes from the payment. She has to cover that herself out of the pay that I give her.
Okay.
But you could put that into the arrangement, but we just agreed that she'd take care of it herself.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Long-term care Medicaid pays for in-home care, right?
Medicare does not,
Medicaid. Medicaid.
Medicaid, Medicaid does not pay family caregivers for in-home care. It will pay for a licensed private agency to provide in-home care, but it can't be you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. This next question says, my sister and I are paying an overnight caregiver for our mom a monthly salary. Can we deduct this amount on our federal and or state taxes?
Yes, if the amount that you, um, okay, whose taxes are we talking about? Um, it's your taxes. You would have to itemize. The amount that you are paying would have to be more than 7.5% of the rest of your medical expenses. So it you're going to have to talk with your, if you can document it and you have the receipts, talk with your tax accountant to see if the amount that you're paying is going to be enough over the 7.5% for you to be able to do it. No harm in asking your tax accountant. Here are the receipts. This is what I pay. Can I deduct it? It's going to have to be um, talk to your tax accountant.
Okay. Thank
It
you.
depends on your own personal experience.
Okay. We have a lot of great questions coming in. Well, aid and attendant pay for a surviving spouse. Will aid and an attendant pay?
Oh, if if the care is necessary for a surviving spouse and not the veteran themselves, you're going to have to ask VA.
Okay.
There's all sorts of permutations and combinations and regulations, and um, I don't know that the answer to that question. My gut tells me no, but no harm in asking the VA. If the care recipient is a surviving spouse of a qualified vet. That's your question. I don't have the answer. VA will.
Okay. Thank you. Just switching gears back to the Virginia Code, um, 288.
Yes.
How does the Virginia Code address the rights and responsibilities of family caregivers and what specific provisions are included to support them in their caregiving roles?
As far as I am aware, the Virginia Code does not provide any assistance to family caregivers.
Okay.
Um, Again, check with your area agency on aging. They may have a better answer than I do, but at the moment, I cannot come up with um, any Virginia statutory provision to assist caregivers in their roles.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. My wife suffers from Alzheimer's and is in very advanced dementia. She has caregiver daily. Can the experience be submitted for a tax deduction?
The cost that you're paying, if you're paying it out of pocket, um, definitely submit that documentation to your tax preparer. Again, if the medical expenses for her care, in addition to what you're paying for overnight care, along with all of her other medical expenses, if it's over what the amount over 7.5% of your adjusted gross income would definitely be deductible. You're going to include that along with all of her other um, uh, expenses, hospitalization, doctors, co-pays, drugs. Um, Add it all up and get the documentation to your tax provider.
Okay.
Prepare.
Okay. Thank you. For the Virginia limit of 155,000 assets, what types of
Yes,
assets does this include? Um, Things such as primary residence or saving
okay.
assets?
That's a VA question.
Okay.
Um, whether VA uses the same sort of countable resources as Medicaid, I cannot answer. The VA has one of the very best websites that explains all of the permutations and combinations of eligibility requirements. I would hop on the va.gov and look up under the aid and attendance um, website, and they will be very specific about how they calculate um, assets for that $155,000 maximum.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. My aunt has dementia, and we met with an attorney to designate a power of attorney. She lives in Florida. The attorney said it was too late to process this for her because of her diagnosis, and she was unable to make the decision to designate one of her nieces as her designated representative. Is this accurate, or should we consult with someone else?
Um, I if the lawyer that you talked to about preparing,
I think Sally may have frozen on us.
Yes.
Let's see. Sorry about that, folks. Let's see if we can get Sally back. Just bear with us for just one moment. Let's see. And if not, we may have to end here, Catherine. It is about 12:59. Folks, we'll give Sally just one more moment to see. It looks like she might be toggling back in. Let's see.
Okay, well, since it is 1 o'clock, I would like to thank you, the audience, for providing your questions along with Sally. We also want to invite our audience to spend um, time with us on Wednesday, March 19th from 12 to 1 on caregiving with confidence, taking off your cape and taking care of you. Just a reminder, please fill out your survey. And
Yeah.
this,
Catherine, I'm going to pause you. It looks like we have
oh,
Sally back
hi,
here.
Sally, you're back.
Um,
Hello,
Sorry about that,
I'm
folks.
back.
Ladies,
Did
it
we
is
lose everybody?
Nope, we didn't. It's still one. We can stay on an extra 5 minutes and Catherine, just go as fast as you can to get
Okay,
some more questions. Sorry
Okay,
okay.
about that, folks. You're good.
That's okay. That's okay. So Sally, did you want to just respond to this last question?
sure.
Okay.
Connect me up. Zoom me
Okay.
up.
Okay. So this person, her aunt lives in Florida. The attorney said it was too late to
Right.
process.
I would, if the attorney had reservations about the capacity of the individual to sign the power of attorney, I'm sorry, but I wouldn't try to go shopping around for another lawyer to give you a different opinion. That's not good law. Um, so it so
Okay. 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 Well, let's go till 105, since we lost a little bit of time. Um, okay. Just okay. As a licensed caregiver, if a licensed caregiver can provide caregiver services through Medicaid, how would one apply for that?
to become a licensed,
If a licensed caregiver can provide caregiver
yes. How
services.
do you go about becoming?
Mhm.
Uh, I don't have the answer to that question. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Okay, let's go jump to another one. Would FICA taxes need to be paid for such as caregiver contract, much like what is required when you would hire a nanny?
Yes,
Okay, okay, thank you. Okay, we have time for maybe one more. Okay. What resources or benefits are often underutilized? And how can caregivers assist in accessing these services to improve their loved ones' quality of life?
I really don't know which benefits are least used. Um, and I think it's on an individual basis as to whether the individual is eligible for that benefit or, but again, uh, benefitcheckup.org is a great place to go to see what all are available. And it, dig into the details as to whether there are extra benefits that are available in your individual circumstance.
Okay, thank you. Okay, to apply for Medicaid, does Medicaid require the applicant's total net worth, including house, car, and whole life insurance, is no more than $2,000, excuse me, $2,000?
The the 2000, okay, there are two, there's resources and there's income, and I don't really have time to go into the difference in Medicaid. The $2,000 is the monthly income available to the individual who needs to remain eligible for Medicaid. The assets such as the home, the car, the life insurance, the savings, the bank account, those are um, that's different. That's not the 2000 income. It's the resources and the income, and there there are limits to both. And that's about as much as I can do in a minute and a half on Medicaid.
That's
It's very
thank you.
complicated.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Well, again, thank you, Sally, for your wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much. I know we had a little technical difficulty, but thank you, the audience, for being patient. Again, I want to invite all of you to our next webinar on March 19th from 12 to 1, Caregiving with Confidence and taking off the cape and taking care of you. So just a reminder, please fill out the survey when you share, and please share what types of programs that you would like us to bring to the community. Again, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great afternoon.
Stay safe, everyone.